Hello and welcome to the San Diego ATD Get Good with Articulate Storyline Workshop. I am John Morley. I'm an instructional designer, external consultant. So if I can help you with a project, my email address is in the chat window. Now, a word from our sponsors, San Diego ATD and ISBI SoCal. Next Tuesday, ISBI will be having a lunch and learn. So over lunch, you can learn cracking the code, what top performers do differently, and how to scale their success. Presented by Jamie Torchiani. So if you want to be a top performer, this is a good way to pick up some hints. And then the following Friday, this is the ATD chapter meeting. This will be creating community in virtual, hybrid, and blended learning with Cindy Huguet. Here we are. We are virtual right now as we speak. And then ATD San Diego gets social 1st of May. And this is real people in real time in a real place. Oddish Wine being the place. That name alone should be enough to show up for, see what's going on there. Then first Monday is often followed by our first Friday and the first Friday roundtable. In this case, we will be discussing the article, How to Collaborate Effectively If Your Team is Remote. Remote as we are right now, facilitated by Shelby Megiff. Then following up busy day Friday because ATD on that very day is having a lunch and learn forum, so you can get together and discuss what's going on within our profession. And then ISBI first Tuesday follows the first Friday, and that will be inoculating your leaders against the mind-heart disconnection virus. Charles Jones, I believe he's a returning speaker and definitely worth listening to. And then next month, I am back, but more importantly, Julia Whaley will be here to talk shop and get smarter about storyline. Julia was in 2023 selected as part of the Learning 30 Under 30, and more recently, she has spoken at industry events such as DevLearn and ATD Technology, where I met her, so she is definitely worth tuning in for. Nobody knows everything about storyline, especially me. So this is our opportunity to talk shop and learn from people who do know a lot, such as Ron Price. Ron has 35 years of experience in organizational effectiveness, leadership, coaching, instructional design, spiritual development, and experiential learning, a broad skill set indeed. His clients have included Duke University's Fuqua School of Business, Harvard Business School, and international companies such as Amazon, BP, and PepsiCo. In 2002, Ron founded Real Asian Ships. Ron founded Real.
It's like relationships, but real is the first syllable. So
Relationships. There we go.
There you go.
A consulting firm, an outdoor challenge course to help folks get real and perhaps in the process get some fresh air and exercise. Then in 2008, since 2008, this is the cool part, Ron has been at Yukon Learning, working closely with the Articulate engineers and community team to design and develop their certified training programs for Articulate. So this is the official message coming from the guy officially designated to share it. We are fortunate tonight. So Ron, I will turn it over to you. I will stop sharing and allow you to share, please, sir. Are you
Thank
able
you
to?
very much, John. And you should be able to see my screen. I've got a story view up there for you to look at. I pre-build things like this, not because you have to have something pre-built. It's like notes. It just helps me remember what I thought I was going to do tonight. So I have two scenes, and I thought one of the things John and I talked about were some of the hidden gems and some of our efficiencies that we use that I think a lot of people overlook. And, our experience, we work with a whole lot of people that are self-taught in storyline. And so when you're self-taught in storyline, sometimes you just learn to do what you need to do to get that job done. And it may have been successful, but there may have been, other ways of doing it and maybe even more efficient ways. And so we tend to try to help uncover those efficiencies. My plan and my conversation with John was that in these sessions, he said they're usually fairly intimate and people ask questions and they may want to try along doing those things. So if you want to open up a storyline, it might depend on what your setup is, where you are, whether you have enough space for multiple monitors to have us up on one and a storyline up on another. But that might be helpful if you want to play along. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the first slide and talk about some of the things. And I could send this story to when we're done with it. And I've just put, again, my little notes up here talking about some of the things that we use to help us, get things a little bit more effective and a little bit more efficient. So here's a simple slide. And all I've done is created a button at this particular moment. And if you look down here, it's not really a full button. I kind of edited the states, and I have a couple of states in here, and then we have it showing a layer. So there's really nothing on the layer, just to give you a sense of that. And one of the things that we teach as far as efficiencies go is this concept that we call make it great, then duplicate. And the reason why we might do something like that, and we're going to talk about Format Painter here in a little bit as well, but we're always thinking about templatizing things that might be helpful in whatever it is that you're building out. So in this particular case, I have a normal state, and I'm also making an assumption that people know storyline enough to know what I'm talking about. There's a hover state, and then I've added a selected state. And this is one reason why I might not want to rely on Format Painter and rely on making something great and then duplicating, is because my selected state, you can see, is a larger rectangle. It expands. So if I wanted to give that effect of a file folder popping out, this is really going to be a cool look soon when Articulate's got the new radius control that they got already in beta, and it's already on the roadmap, so we can talk about it, just can't show it. But you can actually make a rounded rectangle, like only part of it rounded, so it does look like the top of a file folder. So when you hover over one, it can jut out and it can look kind of cool. And that's the effect we were going for here. But the idea would be, if this button over here, I'm going to add a trigger to it to show this layer. What are some things that might help with that? We can kind of see how this is not quite lined up with the layer. I have the visibility setting on here. So just to show you what that looks like. We see a lot of people do this by accident, but you can always be on a layer, on a base, and hit the eyeball to see. It'll be dim, but it'll show you what you've got on that layer, and vice versa as well. If I'm on the layer, if I don't want to see the things on the base, I can turn them off. I can turn them on. We have people all the time send us messaging that something's gone terribly wrong. And typically it means they just poked one of these eyeballs out because you don't even see there's an eyeball there till you hover over it. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma for some people. But what I tend to do at times, if I wanted to make sure this was lined up to where, my idea might be when they select this button, it's going to expand out. And then when the layer shows, it'll look like they're kind of connected. Then I could do that with this layer. So if I come over here to the layer, the one thing I might want is the same color pattern, the same alignment. So I might use the drawing guides to help me line things up here. I might not. But one of the things I can do is hit the undo the dim option on the layers so that I can see that this color, I can match these colors. This isn't the color though that I want. This is the normal, and I want to match it to the selected. So when I'm doing something like this, I might come in, click on the button and change its initial state here to the selected state. And now when I come in here, I can not only see the coloring, I can see how I might want this to line up just perfectly where I need to line it up. And then I can also sample that color by filling this shape with the same color. Let me get that there. And then taking the border off. And so that's not quite there. So I'm just going to move it over just a hair. And I do nudging, which I have on another slide, but I don't know if whenever you're lining things up, It might be important under view for you to know what your grids and guides settings are. Um, and on grids and guides, I typically leave all mine checked up here, snap to grid and snap to other objects. If you have those selected, what that also means when you're moving things with your arrow keys is if I just move things with my arrow keys, they'll move by grid point. But if I hold down control, they'll move by pixel point. And that way I can get things just exactly where I want them just by nudging with that pixel point. Now, I don't say that as a rule because a lot of people come in here and turn these off. If you have them off, it does the exact opposite. If you move it without the control with these off, for example, now it moves by pixel, and I have to hold down control to move by grid point. So I would just say land on one that you like, and that way you don't have to learn every time you do something a new way of doing it. But this way I can do it the way I like to do it. And then the effect would be something that I might enjoy here if I did add a trigger to this to show the layer. This is popping up on another thing. And if you're getting the idea here, we won't need to do too much else. But check this out. When I play it, I'm going to create an effect. And I didn't really animate the layer yet or anything, but you can get a feel for what that might look like here. As I hover and click, that kind of gives that selected state working with the base layer to look like we're doing something intentionally. Our design is a little bit more intentional here. So it's something like that, just using what you already know about grid points, these visibility settings here, being able to turn the dim off. I typically only turn the dim off when I am trying to match colors. I turn it back on so that I don't get confused about what's on the base layer versus what's on the layer. But it's great for matching colors. And I'm colorblind, so I have to usually sample something with a dropper or color things by numbers. So I'm not really ever looking at something go, oh, this is the color I chose last time. If I do, I count just 4 over and 3 down, like I'm doing some sort of battleship game to find what colors I'm going to be using. So any questions about that, or anybody have any other efficiencies that you use that are different or similar?
I had a question,
Go
because I've
ahead.
never even used that grid and guide thing there.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I've seen it, but it never occurred to me like why it's there. So when you're in there, like snapping to the grid, is it snapping to the grid that you're not showing right now, or
right.
is
It's
it?
snapping to whatever that grid, if I display the grid, which you really
Mhm.
can't see unless I were to change this to a higher level, you'd probably see it
Okay.
coming in there now. You can kind
Oh,
of
okay.
see that's the grid. It's trying to snap to those points. And it happens like when you're moving something. If I just grab this
Hmm.
and try
Hmm.
to move it, you've probably experienced where it kind of wants to move it where I can't even grab it. There we go. Well, what is going on here?
It
I
is
mean,
not cooperating.
I rebooted my machine right before I got on. Just let me turn those things off. Maybe did I lock it? No,
No.
Not locked.
that's interesting.
Yeah,
Let
you
me draw
can't
another
grab
one.
it.
How about that? Yeah. So there you go. Some things, there you go. So when
Yeah,
I'm
that
dragging
seems
it
to
and I'm
work.
not quite getting it where I want, it's because it's snapping.
Oh, you couldn't drag it because it's on the layer. Would that be
No,
the
it's
situation?
not. It's on the
No,
base.
it's the base.
Oh, it is on the.
That's right
Okay.
here. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with it.
Yeah, it's strange.
Oh, there
There
it
you
is.
go.
It could have been mouse error. But the other thing that I do here, because by default, when you're dragging something, it's trying to snap to grid too. You can kind of see it
Hmm.
not smooth.
But
So
yeah.
when I'm dragging them, I'll hold down Alt and it doesn't snap to grid. See how smooth that moves? So if I'm really trying to manually move something where I want it, Alt will override those grid settings. But
Mhm.
then when it's off, you'll see it kind of snaps, has a little stutter, which I like. I like it because
Mhm.
it helps me know things are better aligned.
Mhm.
and it also aligns to these guides as well. And I'm a big fan of the drawing guides. Not everybody uses them, but I keep them on. And the benefit of those is you can move them. You can also hold down control when you're moving them to duplicate and create your own patterns. So if you're looking at a big project we might be building, you might see 20 or 30 guides that we've drawn in different places that mean things. The only thing I don't like is I wish, you can come over here and put a text box to label what you think they are, but it'd be cool if you could name them, but you can't. But you can right click over here and just say, add a new horizontal guide. And if you right click up off top of the screen, you can add a vertical guide, or you can just hold down control when you're dragging one as well.
Is there a particular reason for the positions of the current guides to where you have them now?
Typically, it's this is the default setting, except for this one that I just did, and you can just drag it off when you don't want it.
Okay.
And it's more like creating that, not the thirds or whatever it is. It's these little corner points, though. I think it was something like not the golden ratio or whatever, but those little corner points are places where the eyes tend to rest for a lot of people. So that's typically the default location when you turn them on. It used to just be one in the center and one in the middle. Now they do it this way. Just to give you a little bit of a framing that can work. So drawing guides, I use them. Visibility settings, I think, are significant. If you have a lot of these, if I have something else, like another layer, and I've duplicated this one, a lot of times I might be putting something on the slide, and I want to make sure, well, I want this when they change layers to be in the exact same spot the other item was on the previous layer. I can always turn the visibility on a different layer and use it as my model to line things up. So I do this quite a bit when I'm designing something, but the benefit of our team is we have a design team that does a lot of the visual design, and we just have to be able to work within it. But if you're doing your own, these little things might just help with your efficiency. So you're not guessing. And the big one for me on this one is really that default setting of a state. A lot of people just overlook that initial state, which is good for you when you're designing, but it also might be good in the actual project where you want something to start hidden or start disabled. You can do that. In this case, I just hit it start selected so that I could see if it's going to match up to where I put this rectangle. And then I can turn that, like I said, undim that to see if it's really going to be what I want. And it's pretty close. And I'll dim it back. So that's one of the things we do. We make one thing, we get a button exactly the way we want it, whether it has icons or not, and then we duplicate it. So for these, I would now come in here and I'd typically do Control Shift Drag when I'm creating a menu like this. So the benefit of anything you drag while you're holding down Control makes a duplicate of. These buttons are acting weird tonight. There we go. Nope. It's like time I click on it, it disappears. There. So I'm dragging this over here. But if I held down Control while I dragged it, I've never even seen that icon before. There we go. Maybe I shouldn't have restarted before this session. It's like went into another whole thing. I'm not even getting that to show up. There we go.
It's just so reassuring to see other people have technical problems.
If I hold down Shift when I'm dragging it and Control, see it maintains alignment vertically or horizontally. I can't drag it out here in this corner. So if you're building a menu, Control Shift Drag is really a nice feature. I just don't know why it's not working on these initial shapes. There we go. And that could be because I've got these set. It could be something weird happening because of the preset selected. I don't know. It shouldn't, but it could be not being able to do that well because of the state it's currently in, but I'm going to find out. I've never had it not work. Yeah, it's working now. So it could have been me having it in that initial state, throwing it off. But the other one is Format Painter, which is one that we tend to use a lot. So, for example, if you had your buttons, let's say you build out your buttons, and I'm just doing a Control Shift Drag here using the shortcut keys. Um, a couple of things that we do here is I'm just going to go ahead and align them a little bit. I already have nudging on this one as well. And I love this. They changed the interface a couple years ago in Articulate to make the format option where these were just available to you without having to go a couple of menus down to get to them. You can just hit this and it distributes them vertically, which is kind of nice. You have the distribute horizontally. There is the alignment, and whenever you do alignment like this in Storyline, by default, it's to the other objects and not to the slide. A common one you'll see, for example, if I bring these up like this, and I'll just do it, say we'll put our menu across the top. And then I'm just going to lasso them up here, and then I'm going to do some, let's say, going to be in the middle, and I'm going to distribute them horizontally like so. These are now spaced out equally, but they're not centered, so they're aligned among each other, but not to the canvas. The easy solution for us is just grabbing them and just grouping them with a Control G, and then coming up here and just saying, okay, center that group, and then do Control Shift G to ungroup them. And now we've got them. Once I do Control Shift G, now they're individual, but they're centered. That pattern is now centered. There is a way of telling it to orient to the slide instead of to each other, but it's not in any kind of normal place. It's under View. I know it's not even under View, but it's under Home. I can't ever find it. It's so hard to find. I have an object selected. It's under Home, Arrange, Align, and then change it to Align to Slide. Well, you don't want to do that every time you want to do something real quick, because then you have to go back and change it to align to objects when you're done. So I typically just group them and do it that way. And then, like, I've done it, and it's still hard for me to remember where it is. You have to have an object selected and go to Home, Arrange to even find it, which is kind of silly. That's part of the carryover from when they did when Articulate built this ribbon, they collaborated with Microsoft. So there's a lot of Microsoft-esque stuff still baked into it that don't really play as well in the world Storyline. And the other piece, one of the reasons we might do something like this too is now that you've got your button set, this is where Format Painter might come into play. So let's say now you decided you want to animate, add something to one of the states. So let's say if I hit Edit States, and I decided on the hover state, we're going to add an animation to this. You can't animate this object, but if I insert an additional object, we can add an animation to it. So I'll just do that real quick and just draw another little rectangle at the bottom of this one. And I'll just make it whatever I want here. It's not going to be exact, but we're going to get it close. And then I'm just going to animate this to wipe across or something like that. So I'm going to have it wipe, and I'll just have it go from the left, and I'll do it like a 0.5. And I'll animate it out too. So I'll wipe it going back to the right. And so I'm just going to build that into the hover state. And I'll just give it a good color so you know it's happening. So when I preview the slide, this is the effect we just created. It's got that nice animating in and animating out effect. I'd probably spend a little bit more time getting it just right here, so I'll do that. And this is where the guides could come into play. I just run this guide to the end of this item here. I'll write it off the slide. It keeps disappearing on me though, and then I have some weird behavior going on tonight. I've not had this happen. I'll just make it longer by a couple pixels and I'll move it over. Like so. And then the thing that we like to do here is just paint that state using Format Painter, double clicking it, and then you can paint, all of these buttons will now have that animated hover state added to them. Single clicking Format Painter, a lot of people use, but double clicking it's nice because you can paint several items at the same time. So it's kind of a nice effect if you were trying to build an interactive menu, just being able to use
That is
format.
slick. That is very nice. I like that.
Mhm.
So distribution, shortcut keys are a big part of our efficiency, and then the animating of the states. Anybody have any questions or other things that you do in events like this?
Nope. It's good.
Awesome.
I was thinking I never use the control and the drag to duplicate something. I don't know why I have like a mental block on that, but
Well, the tricky part,
it's
it does
good.
throw people off, and of course, right now it hasn't been working well tonight.
Mhm.
Anyway, is there is a difference between being in an object and on an object. So if I
Mhm.
try to do control drag now, it's not going to work because
Because you're in it. I
I'm in
see.
the button. If I'm on the edge of the button though, and then hold control, then you see how the
Mhm.
mouse changed.
Yeah.
Now let me normally it's acting up again, but normally it'll let me do that. And when it's working well, it's really a nice, especially building a menu. You can,
Mhm.
it's not shaving off a whole lot of time, but if you're building a lot of these, it adds up after a while. So this was the one that I like. We're going to talk a little bit about the animation. We talked about Format Painter. Animation Painter is also one that we use a lot. And I wanted to show if you're using icons that are part of the content library, which we happen to love. And one of the benefits of using an icon is you can see the options for coloring. And you don't ever know if you have that option until you insert the icon. But in the timeline, whenever you see these carrots in here in the timeline, typically that's telling you you've grouped an item or that item is made up of multiple other items, like all of these icons. It can usually mean grouped. It's an icon that's made up of vector images, or it could be you're animating by paragraph. Those are what the caret is going to mean in the timeline. In these cases, all the icons are telling you it's not just an image, it's made up of several free-form images, which means you can color those separately, you can animate them separately, you can do a lot of different things with them. The downside is when you go in to look for an icon in the library, is you have no clue
Yeah.
which ones are that or not. So if I typed in,
Mhm.
and uh, click, I've got something like this, I've got something like this. If I did something like this and insert it, it's just one item. But another one might be the triangle's one and the line is another. So now I can only color this whole thing. But if I come in here and did another one, some of them you don't want to use if you're going to do coloring. Like something like this one, every one of these lines are
Mhm.
probably a separate graphic. So if you were thinking, I'm going to color these, um, then you've got a little bit more work to do. It's not hard work, but so in here now, I might decide, okay, the arrow is this freeform object. I can hold down shift and I want all of the little lines now to be a different color. So I can just do a shape fill. Sometimes it's shape fill, sometimes it's line fill, but in this case, I think it's shape fill. Maybe not. Let's check those out. I'll make those lines thicker too so we can figure it out. Doesn't seem to be getting any thicker. There you go. And I'll do the line color as well. And then you can do the arrow color, a completely different color. So we like these. The icons have been a really nice addition to our work. And if you have a color scheme you're working from, you can come in and really make these stand out to be pretty nice little elements that you're going to be using here. So the vector drawings, the freeform drawings are really nice when you're building on an icon, and they're just automatically grouped for you. The downside is that they make horrible buttons because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because since these are all individual items, if this was a button that we clicked on, only the solid parts are clickable.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is a very poor choice for a button. So what we tell people, if you want this to be your button, insert a shape or anything really, a button. In this case, I can insert the shape here. I can take this icon, I'm just going to copy it for now. And on this particular button, I'm actually going to get rid of the fill, or I'll just go 100% transparent here. And then I'll take the outline off. And then I'll go to the state of that and just edit the normal state and paste that icon that we've created. And you'll see that tiny little plus there. No, I just covered it up with the icon. Let me move the icon back a little bit. You'll see that tiny little plus there. That's telling me the top left-hand corner of where my shape was before I made it invisible. So I know that this is actually going to be now, and I can use my arrow keys here to put that in there. And I got a good little image down here too to tell me if it's centered or not. But now I can come in here and get done. And now the beauty of this, this whole shape is clickable, not just the dark parts. So we'll sometimes just edit the normal state of an object and put an icon in there.
Could you do something similar but by putting a transparent shape over the icon?
You could, but then you see now this I can change states of. You can't change states of like if you used a hotspot, they don't have states. So then you have two objects you're dealing with instead of one. So when you come in here, when I go down here, it's just one object, even though it's really two. So yeah, you could cover them, but now you got two objects, so you have to group them. And then you can add a trigger to a group, but you can't change the state of a group. So I could now even do some state changes with this if I wanted to. So it's our preferred method when we're doing icons, but like you just said, adding another shape over it or adding a hotspot over it, it happens all the time, and people do that quite a bit. But hotspots are one of the few things that can't have states, though. So if you're wanting to be able to give some visual indicator that a state has changed, you probably don't want to use a hotspot. People used to avoid hotspots because they weren't accessible, but now they are. So accessibility issues aren't a problem anymore. But the other thing I like, and this is something we do a lot at Yukon, we don't build a slide that's not animated. Let me get rid of that arrow over here. So we're always animating. It's just something that we do because we're trying to make up for the fact that you don't have a live instructor. So the slides have to carry so much more weight than they ever had to carry in a live presentation. You're probably going to see people present at upcoming conferences, and their slides are going to be just static behind them, and you don't really care because they're not static. They're a really good presenter, so your focus is on them. So you don't have a presenter. You have to let the slides, they have to hold the focal point and carry. So this was just fade animations. What we've started doing a lot is using the reverse path. Then I'll show you our reverse path animation that we like, and then also show you how to use Format Painter to paint that. So it feels like there's a lot more going on here, and it ends up being really easy. So for example, if I wanted to animate this other than a fade, I might come up to animations. I feel like I'm going fast. Is anybody trying to do this with me or just watch?
I'm good.
Watching.
Okay.
I can give time if you want to try it.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to
Watching
add,
and learning.
I'm going to add a motion path. So I'm going to do a line. It draws it down. If you've ever done motion paths, that's the default move. And then I'm going to move this one actually to the left, but not really. This is the direction I'm going in for now. I'm going to drop this down to about maybe 1 second in the duration, and I'm going to take the pixel length to about 25. So it's really just a short motion. See that idea? And then what I'm going to do is just tell it to reverse the path. Because I already had these lined up where I wanted them to be. I'm just going to move them to that location. And so if I'm pretty sure I'm going to like this, but I'm going to preview it just in case I don't. And you'll see that first one is going to fade in and then shift a little bit to the right. And so that was that. It's very subtle. You can make it shift more if you want, but it's, if you've ever used the ascend and descend or the float animations and storyline ascend and descend, you're actually doing that, but you're just doing it sideways. It's what we just built. And then I can click on this object here and double click Animation Painter and paint these other icons, do the same thing. Let me get to that icon painter there. It's not painting that icon. It did. No, it didn't. I am having a field day with things today. It is not painting those. See if it paints the, it's not painting it at all. Let me paint, I'll do it with the text box here at least. I do this all the time, so I'm just going to add it again. So I can do another one. We know it's not hard, but it's just a pain that it's not working the way I expected it. To the left, 25, 1 second, and I'm going to reverse the path. Let me see if this will paint. It even turned the painter off, didn't it? There's the paintbrush. It's not painting it. And then it goes off. Well, anyway, let me do these real quick. I'll get the text box hopefully to paint. This one I'm going to move to the right. Same process, 1 second and 25, and then reverse the path. The whole point of this was to show you that you don't have to keep drawing these because you can paint them. Now, these are painting. Okay, that's good. So it's just the icons that are giving me a difficulty today. So I'll build these out real quick. And I did this earlier today to run a practice run to make sure everything was working as expected. And I should have just recorded that.
A quick budget question here. What
Sure.
you're doing here is absolutely fabulous, and it's also time consuming, and we understand that people cost money. Do you ever have discussions with your clients about how much production value they want to see in this? Would they rather just not have the animation at all and pay less? Or
I mean, there are definitely some that won't. I mean, at Yukon, we have to sometimes decide, do you want us to build it or not? And when we come in, there are sometimes they'll come and go, hey, we just want this to look, we want bullet points, we want static slides, and they're paying the bill, so we'll build it. We're never going to demo that. We're not going to show anybody that. We're not going to tell anybody. We don't want them to let anybody know we built it. I mean, typically,
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I totally understand that.
no, it's like, I mean, if you're going to hire us to build it, I mean, we can do this. Like if my painter was working, that this would have been done a long time ago. And if
Right.
it's, it could be the icons acting up, but with imagery or anything like that, it would be very quick. And then you get into some patterns that you reuse. Like I've already spaced these out on the timeline. But typically, once people see it, they go, "Yeah, we want something like that." See how these are just kind of
Mhm.
moving in. Well, those I did
Mhm.
wrong. That one I forgot to reverse the path on one of these. This one.
Yeah, that is nice.
Um,
Another kind of random
this one I
question here.
forgot to
I
reverse
see
that.
we have a white background here, and I've noticed a lot of people prefer white backgrounds, but I typically go for a dark background,
Yep.
thinking that that draws and on the background I have lighter elements, thinking that draws the eye to that lighter element. Uh, is that a found rationale?
There is actually there are a lot of people that do. It seems like the younger generation, almost every app now has dark mode, light mode you can choose from, and a lot
Mhm.
of and there's been some people talking about eye fatigue and stuff and the dark backgrounds, like my email stuff over here, it's all dark background. But I'll go ahead and tell you, we built a lot of courses and um, I would say 95% of them use the default light background on the player. Now, the slides, we might have graphics. I mean, if you have time at the end, I
Mhm.
can pull up some demos of things we built. But like the player, they want the light. We've only used dark player probably 2 times in the last 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
So light does seem to just be crisp for people. They just like the look. It tends to work better with everybody's logos. A lot of logos don't look good on a dark background when you're thinking about the player. Now, the content itself can be on darker colors, but we find ourselves doing a lot on light. And, we give usually our customers 3 design choices. They're all markedly different. So they're across the board.
Mhm.
And they might choose one and then say, but I like these elements out of this one. So then Ming, our head designer will take those and kind of blend them to get the result that they want. But uh, we find that a lot of people just like also, if nothing else in their LMS is dark and they kind of want these things to not stick out like sore thumbs, they think, well, everything else is, pretty much white with dark text. Let's not make something so drastically different that it
Mhm.
I mean, it stands out for the wrong reasons at times when that happens. So we find ourselves doing a lot of light ones. And the running joke is he'll present 3 designs, and the one that we all think is the best, the customer never chooses. They never. They always choose the one that we like the least, and then it's just they don't want it. Everybody always says, "I want something, new and modern, and I want this to really be different." And then when it boils down to, convincing the stakeholders that this is the direction they're going in, they start compromising pretty quick to go, yeah, let's tone it down a little bit and kind of find that happy medium that everybody likes. But I'm fine with a dark background, but we tend to do more light, and we build several courses a week, so for different
Mhm.
customers.
Yeah, it sounds as if your clients prefer it as well.
Yeah, because we let them choose. Yeah. And now they have the new. Everybody was real excited. If you come into the player, you can have a custom background on your player. We've only had a couple of people ever choose
Mhm.
that. Most of them choose light or dark, and majority of them choosing light.
It's funny. I used to use like with the classic player, I would change the color of it all the time. It
Oh
was
yeah,
part like when I started, like I had fun choosing it, and now I always do the white one. Like I can't, unless someone tells me it has to be different or match it. I thought I would like matching it, and then it's like, nah, white's
yeah,
fine. It's clean. It's
yeah.
clean,
People like the light one. When does this
Yeah.
end, John? Am I just been talking too long?
No,
No,
that was me, Jody. No, you haven't.
we are in the
Sorry, John.
Is there 10 minutes left? Is that what I've got?
yeah,
All
about
right,
that
let me
sounds
show you
good.
a couple of quick things. So I have this other one of the things that's a newer feature that I think a lot of people have overlooked, and I've built this in here already. If I play this slide, you'll see it's kind of more of a carousel effect where a picture is actually flying in. It's actually fading in from the right.
Mhm.
So it looks like it's flying in. And then I've got a button here to show a layer. A couple of things that I like to show people is the timeline has always been great for being able to poke things in the eye and then turn on the things you're working on. And
Mhm.
you can work on something like if I want to work on one of these things that are behind it, I can turn these things off. I found when I'm building a really complex slide lately, I rely more on the new timeline visualization feature. And a lot of people don't pay any attention to it at all. But if you turn that on, is anybody on this call use it much? So
No, I have not.
Sometimes.
basically, it's saying at this point in the timeline, this is what would be seen on the slide.
Mhm.
So since nothing's there yet except this, as I drag it, it's not going to show me the actual fly in. It's just for timing. I can kind of see, okay, that's going to be here. This is going to be here. And so instead of me, like if I wanted to work on that button, instead of me poking everything in the eye, I just drag down here and then I work on the button because that's when it comes in.
Mhm.
And if you have things coming and going a lot on a slide, this timeline visualization is a really nice feature. The downside of it is people turn it on and forget it's on because it stays perpetually on this project till you turn it back off. So someone might leave this slide and work on something else, and they come back and go, "What happened to all the
Mm.
pictures? What's going on?" Because they still
Yeah.
have this on. So you always got to remember to turn it off when you're not using it. But it is a nice feature. You know, some of the animations that we do sometimes can get pretty complicated if you're doing a big carousel like this. If you're doing things that, other things are going to come in later, you want to be able to visualize what's going on your timeline. And that's the point of timeline visualization. It's really a nice feature. It came out about the same time they added visually. You can see how long your animations are on items. You've probably
Mhm.
noticed those there here. This came out around the same time. And then the other thing that I just find that a lot of people don't always pay a lot of attention to is this has a button on it to show a layer. And if I preview this, and you all know this because I feel like some of you are pretty advanced on your use, is in here, um, showing a layer, and then you'll see there are items that are still in the background. And we see this on the community all the time that people just don't realize that layers give you more control. So first, when you're in
Mhm.
the layer, you can hit the properties and you can make a lot of decisions here. You could hide everything on the base, though in some cases you don't want to hide everything. Or you can, somebody, I think was dealing with this even today where the layer was automatically hiding and they didn't realize they had checked this
Mhm.
box to hide the layer. So those are things you can play with. And the new dialogue layer, which is if you're building a new story from scratch and you add a quiz question, by default, all quiz questions use the dialogue layer for their feedback now, which covers up everything, makes it dark, and then you have your items popping off of that. Dialogue layer is kind of a nice effect too. So there's a lot of cool things just baked into the layer properties, and I like to point that out because people forget. And then the other thing I like to point out for something like this, I might not want to delete everything on the slide, especially if I had a header or something, but I can come in here to the base layer objects and then poke that show layer button in the eye. And then when I click on the slide to refresh, just that item is the only thing that gets hidden. I don't have to go to the properties to do that. I can just do that from the layer. So I like to kind of show that to people because it gets often forgotten. There's slide properties when you're on the slide and layer properties when you're on a layer. And then two more quick things. I like to do, we have a new class we teach called Storyline Application Workshop. We just launched the first one last month or this month. And one of the things that we teach in that is if you have certain things you're always doing to shapes, or this is a button, or this is a character, you have certain treatments that you like if you're coming in going, I'm always going to want there to be, whenever we're drawing a shape, our drawing guide says it needs to have a border, and we need that border to be, 7
Mhm.
pixels thick or whatever. And then for the shapes, you're going, or this is a button actually, you're going, the button has to have a certain feel and it has to have an effect of a shadow or something. That's what our customer wants. And then maybe instead of using the characters, you're doing silhouettes of the characters. So I'll just drag the brightness down to 100% and you're doing a silhouette. Well, you don't want to have to do those treatments every time you draw these things. So you can right click these items and say, hey, set this as the default shape of that character. Or this border, set this as the default. So any shape now, if I come in here and insert like a circle, it's going to have the same treatment that that rectangle had because it's now the default behavior. If I insert another character and grab, Simon, it helps you get around some of the, there's a lot of variety in the characters, but sometimes people like to use silhouettes for different reasons because it gives you even a little bit, you don't know what ethnicity, you don't know anything about how they're dressed. You don't have to worry about styles. And so as you come in here and start adding characters, you begin to see that you can do that pretty easy with these. Even the photographic would be that way as well.
Ron, where did you set that up in the format
When you right click
tab?
with these, there's an option down
Yeah.
here.
Oh, on the right. Okay. Oh, okay. Another button or another choice I've never made. So, okay. Learned
Yeah,
two things for
right
sure
down here.
today.
It's easy to overlook. Easy to overlook. Set as default shape. And now it's only going to do that for this project.
Mhm.
Once you open up a new story, it goes back to that blue that they always make all the buttons blue or whatever. But
So every time I add a new character in the way you've been doing it, it'll be that silhouette. And every
right,
time I make a shape, if this were my file, it would have the blue with the red and the 7 points. Okay,
if
cool.
you that's what you wanted, and it just keeps
Hmm.
from having to remember. I mean, I used to
Hmm.
write down, okay, I'm using 8 point border, I'm using
Yeah.
this color of blue, but if you just say set that as my default,
Hmm.
it just makes it happen a little bit smoother. And the last thing I'll show you, and then John can kick me off, or I'll hang out. I can hang out. It's only 10 o'clock. My wife's already gone to sleep, so I have nowhere to be. Is the way updating project text. And when it first came out, it was an automatic thing, and it broke stories that were built in Storyline 3. So they took it out, and you have to now manually do that. And most people don't. And I was just going to show you any of this is a text box, and I'm just typing in lorem ipsum text here. You'll see a text box expands to show all the text. This is a shape. It lets text spill out. And this is a caption. It shrinks text to fit. Those are the normal behaviors of those items. You can always right click these items and go to format shape text box and change those if you don't want them. But there's also something down here called upgrade project text. And most people never pay any attention to it. And it's also found under design and font. It's down here, upgrade project text. So when you do that, if I look in here, I'll just show you real quick. When I right click and hit format shape text box, you see these were my choices. If I decide to upgrade my project text, it's now going to say, I'm going to make a backup just in case you decide you don't like what I'm doing. So let me hit upgrade. And now you're going to see these items are going to change. And so now I have other options. And one of those that I find people tend to love is adding scroll bars. So if you're doing something that's design heavy and you're worried that someone's going to come in here and now they're going to be messing with your putting in too much text. Let me click on this here and right click this. I'll go to format shape, text box. Now I'm going to say fix size and add scroll bars. So if I decide to resize this shape, Storyline just automatically adds a scroll bar to it. So when you're having a design where you've got your shapes a certain size and then you're making a template and then all of a sudden somebody puts too much text in that template, if your text has been upgraded, your fonts, then you don't have to worry about creating, it'll just automatically build scroll bars just like a marker does for you. If you put too much text in a marker, it slaps a scroll bar on it. Well, now you can tell every one of these items, you can right click them and change the way they behave. Well, I hit text to speech instead of text box. I don't want to do that quite yet. I do format shape, text box, and just say fix size, add scroll bars. And now normally you can't resize the text box, but now I can. And it just adds scroll bars if I wanted that. So that's something that a lot of people just overlook. They don't even know it exists, but it's a big thing when you're building templates. We teach that in our application workshop when at the template stage, because it might be helpful moving down the road. The new localization tool will add scroll bars automatically if your language takes up too much space. It doesn't upgrade your project text, but it treats it like this. So I've used up too much time, but I'll stop, and then I don't know what you need to do to wrap up, John, but I'm here if anybody has any questions or thoughts or
Well,
I always plan like an hour and a half of stuff to do in an hour. So I'll apologize.
I just need to thank you very much for a uh, very worthwhile hour. Learned a lot here. And thank you all for attending. Thaddeus, Jody, Erwin, Vince,
Sure,
Jay
thank
Kelly.
you.
Thank you
Thank you
all.
very
I know I
much.
definitely learned like a bunch of things, and I can't believe how much I overlook, or I'm like, I never have that button ever and didn't even know it existed.
Well,
So,
John
I
said
know.
at the beginning, and not everybody knows
yeah,
everything. It's hard to know everything
yeah,
about storyline.
I feel like sometimes you just glaze over things after you just get into your habits, right? Like, I
yeah.
don't need that. And suddenly you're like, oh, it's there.
But you would
Pretty
think like
cool.
you'd hit something by accident, like, what the hell did I just do? And then
Yeah.
find it, but never. Or you would think, but like you get a project from someone and they're doing something weird that you can't figure out. I just had like a gal send me one that she didn't realize that she had changed the property that one slide for
Yeah.
a different player, and she was freaking out because she couldn't figure out. I'm like, oh, just go in there and turn that button off. She's like, what button? So that's how I feel like today. Like I haven't seen that button.
It happens. And I apologize for the glitchiness. I don't know what was going on with this, but I might just turn my machine off. It might be tired. It's 10 o'clock at night. It's been going all day long. I don't feel any heat coming off of it, but who knows? So.
Yeah, we
That's
appreciate you
great.
staying
Thank
up late
you.
for us, Ron.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. It was fun to see y'all, and I'm glad to do it anytime. Just let me know if you're willing to have me back. I'll come up with something to share.
Is the
John,
applications class online? Is that something people can
Yeah,
sign up for? Or
you can. Yeah, we just had the first one in April,
okay.
and then it's going to be offered. I think right now, the next one I think John on our team is doing because I'm out of town, but we've got some travel coming up. We're in London next week, and then we do an ATD and DC, and so if any of you are at those shows, we'll look us up. We'll glad to check you out.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.
Good night. Okay. Here we go.